So we are so excited to be here at Synagogue Emanu-el with Rabbi Evan Ravski. We are here for our King Street Kids Q&A, and we are on the road this time. Thank you for having us in your beautiful worship space.
Our pleasure, my pleasure. So thrilled that the three of you could be with us. I know that we had celebrated a Jewish holiday together earlier last month when you came and you were one of our teachers, and so just thrilled that we can invite you back to this space and that I have the chance now to teach St. Matthew's community.
Your congregation was so hospitable. We hope to do more of these things together. So Pastor, what's our first question?
So our first question for our King Street Kids is, what are some similarities between Judaism and Christianity?
Great. I think that the religions are more similar than we tend to realize. The values that we place on this world, right? The religious values that we try to live out every single day, they all come from the same place, from the Bible. And the goal of it is really just to make the world a better place, to bring more love and care and compassion into the world. The biggest place where we differ is obviously theologically, is that Judaism doesn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God or the Messiah. And so that's probably the biggest theological difference between the two religions. We have just the three books of the Jewish Bible, right, which is the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. We obviously don't have the addition of the New Testament, which y'all have, although we look at it as a good book and fascinating reading and lessons, we just don't consider it part of our Bible or of the same religious authority that Christianity does.
And all religion brings order out of chaos, or at least that's an important part of religion, is to bring order out of chaos, so that we can do just those things we did. Live, hopefully, more peaceably together in this world. I'll bet there are some similarities in our worship, too.
Absolutely. One take. So, I don't know Mass. Do you guys have Mass?
So, we often don't call it Mass in the Lutheran Church, but it really is Mass, because when Luther reformed the church, the church reformers kept much of the worship Mass intact. So I think some Lutherans get nervous when we call it Mass because it feels like it's too Roman Catholic, but it's really the Mass. It's really
right. So that
Go ahead.
So that line in the middle of Mass, that's the height, not of Mass, that of the height of the service, that is holy, 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 Lord of hosts. That is also the pinnacle of our services. In Hebrew, it's kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot. And that is for us the moment when we are closest to God. It's really the height of our service, and we warm up to that, and then it's all sort of calming down and cooling down from that moment in our service. So the liturgy is very much the same, because the liturgy draws from biblical texts, right? That's the majority of liturgy is verses and psalms and stuff that we quote. So very much there's comparisons in the liturgy as well.
And when I was here 2 weeks ago for the worship, you intoned or chanted just like Pastor Rebecca and I do. Would you give us just a sample of how you might sing part of worship?
Absolutely. So I'll recite for you the prayer that we call the Shema, which is actually a biblical text which comes from the book of Deuteronomy, which is really the motto of Judaism, right? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Right? So in Hebrew, and we chant it from the Torah, and we'll show you the Torah in just a little bit, when we chant it, it sounds something like this. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And again, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Obviously, as a monotheistic religion, that's sort of like our declaration of, the God of Israel is a singular God.
And those same, I personally believe that the same God that you worship is the same God, the God of Abraham, is the same God that we worship. So some of those prayers that when we talk about God, it's that same God of Abraham. Daniel is actually studying Hebrew right now. Would you like to sing something in Hebrew, Daniel?
Absolutely not. They do not need to hear me butcher that.
Your voice can't be worse than mine,
One thing I noticed when I was in worship a few weeks ago, for service a few weeks ago, I noticed that you have it was hard for me to follow along because I don't read Hebrew. And it's also, of course, the book is everything is a little backwards from the way that I used to read.
Hebrew goes right to left,
yes.
And so the books go right to left. You open them from what in English books we consider the back, but it's the front in Hebrew books.
That's right. So it took, it took a bit of time to remember that. But you had a very helpful a number sign, and it would help with the page numbers. I don't think that's in the frame actually.
No, it's not.
Okay.
We'll have to put a picture of it.
Yeah, it's our little basketball scorecard thing here that we have.
And will you tell us how this goes? Because we also have, when we have folks coming to worship at our church, it's sometimes hard for people who don't know the liturgy to follow along. And that helps keep people together, correct?
So this helps keep people together. This is actually, I know just like in rabbinical school, I know that when you were in school to become a pastor, that you aced that class of page calling, right? That class. This is actually an addition because of COVID. Was that we added live stream to our services, and so that not knowing if or when people were joining, that I wasn't calling out every single page, that I have this that I can flip next to me so that people who might have joined late know what page we're on. It obviously helps people in the sanctuary as well. It's a new addition though as of COVID.
Okay,
You
good.
might stick around?
I think it might stick around for a while because it lets me call less pages and focus more on the liturgy and helping the service, and it helps the congregants know where we are, in between calling pages as well. So it's beneficial.
So you use two words that are familiar to us. You called the space the sanctuary, and you use the word liturgy. So is that when you called the service or the
So in Hebrew, the word is tefillah, which means prayer. If I were speaking to my own community, I would use tefillah or the name of each service. The morning service is called shachrit. The afternoon is called mincha. The evening service is called mariv. All Hebrew words which literally mean morning, evening, or morning, afternoon, and evening. We name things very literally sometimes in Judaism. So again, that my congregation would understand those words, but so that everyone understands what we're talking about, I'm using words that I know we'll all understand. And yes, obviously we use liturgy at different points, but we'll switch back and forth between English and Hebrew in how we refer to things.
What's our next question, Pastor?
Well, looking at this space, there seem to be a lot of ways that it looks similar to our own space at St. Matthew's, and some things that look a little different, but we're wondering if you could give us sort of a tour of the space up here.
Absolutely. So I know that I know what they can and can't see on the video, but what you would see if you were to turn the camera around is that we just have pews. We have pews set up like the majority of sanctuaries, I think, any church or synagogue, which are hopefully filled every Saturday, which is when we have our Sabbath, right? Our Sabbath is on Saturday, and so that's when everyone comes for services. It looks a little bit different right now, obviously, because of COVID. You can see our social hall is also set up with some chairs that are more distanced from each other than the pews, and God willing, in the next couple months, we'll be closing the wall that divides our sanctuary and our social hall and returning back to normal. Around the room, you can see, I know on the camera shot, you can see that we have some stained glass up here, and we have it around the rest of the sanctuary as well. That's really the extent of the design that the majority of synagogues have. Because of the command to not make a graven image, right, which is found in the Ten Commandments, most synagogues don't have iconography, right? Don't have any statues, don't have pictures of people or anything like that in their sanctuaries. Sometimes they'll have some pictures of animals because some of the animals are associated with the 12 tribes of Israel. So they'll have those to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. They'll have pictures of Torah scrolls that you can see up there, or a menorah, which is over here. The Ten Commandments, which are way up at the top. I don't know if that's on the camera shot or not, but you can see that. And so that's sort of how the artwork that we use to design or to decorate our sanctuary. big thing in front of us is the Ark, or in Hebrew, the Aron Kodesh, which means the Holy Ark. And within that, we have the Torah scrolls, the 5 books of Moses. We'll take one out in a moment, but to look at it a little more closely. But it's the 5 books of Moses all in one scroll. It's written on parchment, right? Animal skin that's been treated and sewn together, and it's written with an all-natural ink. And everything about a Torah scroll actually has to be natural, right? There's no synthetic material at all. Even the cotton strings that you sew it together with are all natural. It's written in Hebrew in a special stylized script, and it takes a lot. There's no when you write Hebrew, there's no vowels in it like we have in English. It's all consonant letters, and so you have to really know you have to know the grammar of how do you place vowels in order to be able to read it easily, I'll say. And so with the Torah, there's not only is there no vowels, there's no punctuation either. So you really have to know where you start and stop because of how it's written. And when we write a Torah scroll, it looks exactly like every Torah scroll that came before it, because you have to copy it letter by letter from a scroll that's already been written. So it's the text is thousands of years old, as we know, and it is unchanged for those thousands of years. And then at the very, very top up there, we have in Hebrew the Ner Tamid, or the eternal light. And it's meant to remind us of God's eternal presence. In the temple in Jerusalem, when the temple stood in Jerusalem, there was a menorah, sort of like this stained glass window up here, right? The 7-branched candelabra, right? That was always lit in the temple, right? It was those who worked in the temple, the Levites' job to maintain the fire constantly and make sure that it was always lit. Obviously, with the temple no longer present in Jerusalem, we wanted to find a way of how do we bring that symbolism back into our worship spaces. And so we designed thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, this idea of this Ner Tamid, this eternal light, which is always lit to remind us of God's eternal presence. So let's open the Ark and we can look at the Torah scrolls. We happen to have a number of Torah scrolls. Different communities, different synagogues will have a different number of Torah scrolls. We are very fortunate and privileged that we have a lot of them. And so you can see they're decorated differently, right? They have different covers. In addition, they have a lot of silver on them. We use silver and not any other metal. Particularly, we don't use gold. And it goes back to actually the incident of the golden calf, right? Because when the Israelites were at Mount Sinai and Moses comes down with those 10 commandments and the people are praying to a golden calf, the last thing we want to do ever is remind God of that really big mess up of praying to an idol. Yeah. And so we avoid things like gold, because maybe gold will remind God of the golden calf, so we use silver instead of gold. And then the covers are decorated as well, differently, and many of our scrolls are dedicated in memory of people by the families who have donated the scrolls to us. And then at the bottom, those aren't real Torah scrolls. Those are printed ones. Those we let the kids use and play with, so that they have the experience to touch the Torah, so to speak.
Now, on a Saturday morning, Rabbi, you would actually present these, correct?
So yeah, every Saturday we take out at least one scroll. There are some weeks where we take out 2. A special celebration sometimes requires us to read from 2 different parts of the Torah. So rather than rolling it, we just bring out 2 scrolls so that each are rolled to the right place. And every single week we read a portion. In Hebrew, it's a parsha. Of the Torah. Every year we make our way from the first chapter of Genesis through the last chapter of Deuteronomy. And so we read the entire thing. It takes 1 year, but we do it every single week, every single Saturday. We read 1/54th of the Torah. Some weeks we read 2/54ths, right? We have to double up a couple weeks because of there's only 52 weeks in a year, so sometimes we have to double up. Day thing is another one of those COVID inventions, which was normally we have two people standing up here on either side, as well as the reader, the person who's reading, and they're making sure that every word is said correctly. They also help by holding the scroll open, because it is, it'll roll back naturally together. And we realized a couple weeks into services that without people standing on either side, there was no one to hold the Torah scroll open. And so one of our congregants designed this nifty little holder for us in order to, so it doesn't collapse back. So, Pastor Eric, you're welcome to come over. You're welcome to touch, so long as you don't touch the letters. Okay. But you can feel here that this is parchment. It's nice, it's soft, it's, and then solid wood as well. And then you see the cotton threads here.
So do you have to be a rabbi to read, or can lay people?
Anyone over the age of 13 can read. Anyone who's Jewish over the age of 13 is allowed to read in our services. And again, you can see the special stylized script or calligraphy with all these sort of little crowns on top. Like I said, there's paragraph breaks, but there's no punctuation, right? There's no vowels here. And a Torah is kosher, it's fit for ritual use, so long as every single letter is perfect, right? So I said you can touch here, right? Here we can touch all we want. We don't touch the letters because if I even scrape off or chip off one letter or half a letter, we're not allowed to use this in services, right? So we have this other little tool here called a yad, right? Which is just a pointer. It's a yad means hand in Hebrew. So again, you can see, what does it look like? A finger, a hand, exactly. And we use this so that when you're reading, you can sort of follow along and point to the word that you want. And again, it happens to be that this last week, what we read is one of those pieces that we actually pull liturgy from. So the text here says, "Vayehi binsoa Aaron, vayomer Moshe, kuma Adonai v'yafutzu oivecha, v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha," which is it's a piece of liturgy that we use actually when we open up the ark, right? Which means that when the ark, right, when the ark of the covenant went forward, Moses would say, rise everyone in front of God, and let God go before you, right, out of the camp. And so we actually take this line here and bring it into our liturgy. I'm glad it was rolled to that right spot.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. The script. When did you first learn to read Hebrew?
So I went to a Jewish day school, so I started learning to read Hebrew in kindergarten. We even on our religious school here at Emanu-el, we start engagement with Hebrew early on, right? Learning Hebrew letters, reading Hebrew fluently is a challenge, right? Especially when we teach it with the vowels and we teach it with cantillation marks when you have to sing it, because there is a special chant that goes with this, and so you learn it with those marks. But then you have to learn it without, right? You have to learn it well enough that you know it without. So the first time I read Torah was in 5th grade, and I haven't stopped since.
Thank you for sharing this.
Of course.
Thank you. As you put it away, one of the things in the Jewish services that I've attended, the ark is almost paraded around. We sometimes have a gospel proclamation where we take our Bible to the center, and we will proclaim from there. Every Sunday do you do that, or do you just bring it from there to here?
So Saturday.
That's
okay. I know. So in regular times, yes. In regular times, we would take it out of the ark, and we would parade it around the sanctuary. People have the opportunity to use either their prayer book or many people wear a prayer shawl, and we'll use the fringes to touch the Torah and to kiss it.
It's called a talis?
A talit, yes, a talis. A talis or talit. And we stopped doing that parade during COVID because it was COVID. And same with the little Torahs that are there, we would have the children come up and take those and parade around behind the Torah as well, as we did it And we do it when we take the Torah out of the ark, as well as when we put it back into the ark at the end of that section of the service. So again, God willing, we'll be back to doing that in short order. But for now, it just comes out and goes down here. And before we started, we had talked about looking around the space, saying that, oh, this looks like the altar in your church.
Yes.
So this table up here that we read the Torah from actually goes down between the pews in regular times. But because we added live stream during COVID, the camera of the live stream can only see the pulpit up here, which is called a bima. It's a bima, B-I-M-A. It's a raised dais, so that we're a little bit higher. But the camera can only see the bima, so we had to move this table up here so that people could see the Torah being read. The idea of the bima is that you go up to the Torah, right? Is that just as like Moses went up to Mount Sinai, or we go up to God, here whenever we have an honor with the Torah, we come up. We literally go up to the Torah or to the ark. And it represents sort of that higher state of the Torah, the higher state of what it means to be up here leading and doing that work, as opposed to when you go down, still in a holy state, but different up here. So that's why we have a bima or a dais.
So our area is called the chancels. The boys and girls they gather on the steps for our children of God moment. But again, there's some other similarities that we see here, and there's so much more we could talk about, but I know you have a class of each. So Pastor, what's our final question?
Our final question is, we have these hats on that if you'll notice, what do you call them, and why are we wearing them?
Great. So the little things on our head that we're wearing are called, traditionally they were called yarmulkes, right? Which is actually a Yiddish word. The better word, the one I prefer, is kippah. It's one easier to say, and it's Hebrew, not Yiddish. So kippah is K-I-P-P-A-H, if we were to transliterate it to English. And I know that y'all are wearing the sort of the black ones, the standard ones that we have here to make sure that everyone is wearing one when they come in. Mine isn't. I think mine's purple today, right?
It is purple. Yeah.
Mine's purple. I dress to match often.
Kind of like Mr. Eric.
So in Judaism, we have this value, this notion that there's a difference between what is down here and what is above, right? There's the separation between humankind and God. And so the covering of our head represents that sort of separation, that sort of modesty. And so I know, in many cases we say, take your hat off at dinner, or take your hat off as a sign of respect. In Judaism, it's the opposite. It's we cover our heads as a sign of respect. And so whenever someone is up here on the bima engaged in ritual, we cover our heads. There are those who wear a kippah the entire day, like myself. It acts as a reminder of God's presence. It acts as a reminder of our identity. But its primary function is to separate between humanity and God, to say, I recognize that there's God above. Obviously, God is all around, but that I recognize, heaven above, and that's what it serves as, a sign of respect and separation.
We're neighbors, and I see you always wear yours all the time.
I'm sorry.
I know. Thank you so much for having us. There's so much more to talk about, but we got started, and we hope to have a worship together for our Wham on the Road at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then maybe some other things our congregations can do together whenever this COVID is completely gone away.
I hope so. This is something that you and I have been talking about since we moved in last year. When a pastor and a rabbi buy a house across from each other, like those are great conversations, and I truly look forward to it, and hope we continue building this relationship.
Thanks, Rabbi. Thank you. Thanks
My
for having
pleasure.
us. And thanks
Thank
for your
you.
parishioners too. It shows that work happens. There's more similarities than differences between our traditions.
Yes, you'll see on the camera we have two congregants here who are preparing for a bat mitzvah this weekend. A young girl is coming of age at 13, and so they're decorating the bima with some foodstuffs that'll be donated to a food pantry after the bat mitzvah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Next time, what are they send their questions?
to Daniel.
Daniel. All right.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.